From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and Akashvani, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell and I'm coming to you from Dubai this week, where I'm here commentating on the ICC Women's T20 World Cup. It's been 12 years since I was last in Dubai, but staying not far away from the world's tallest structure, the Burj Khalifa. So impressive. And I did happen upon the Dancing Fountain show on my first day here when I landed, which was quite a sight, along with about 2,000 other people who were crowded round. It's such a melting pot of nationalities here in Dubai. And I've forgotten how pristinely clean everything is here, apart from the giant road and the motorway and the traffic, which does bog you down a bit. But yeah, it's quite an awe-inspiring place.
Ali, what a frolicsome time you're having there. And I hope you don't wear yourself out before you come down under, because down under already, a bit of news. Cameron Green has sustained a back injury, stress fracture. He may well miss the whole test series. We don't know, but we believe he won't be bowling in the near future, and he may not be batting. So keep your eye open for that as we get into the real cricket with the Sheffield Shield in Sydney and other places that are getting underway as I speak.
Well, more real cricket happened later in the year, Jim, as India go to Australia. Pity about Cam Green. I can sympathise, being on a similar road, as it were. This is Charu Sharma for Akashvani. I'm at Bangalore once again, steady as she goes on my rehab course. There's physiotherapy and hydrotherapy and a television therapy, which is allowing me to watch a lot more. Not so much the India-Bangladesh series, which I'm afraid is not hitting the highs for Bangladesh, but so much more of the Women's T20 World Cup, where you are, Alison, in Dubai. And I'm afraid there too, the Indian team seems to have disappointed so far, but we'll see how it all ends.
Yeah, there is still lots of cricket to be played here, that's for sure. Coming up in the show, we're going to be talking about Joe Root, the record breaker, after he overtook Sir Alistair Cook to become England's highest ever run scorer in tests. But it is in Dubai where we'll start with the Women's T20 World Cup, with matches being played both here and in Sharjah, two of the 7 Emirates that make up the UAE. Highlight for me so far, I have to say, has been the crowd that turned out for the India-Pakistan match, because we talked a lot on Stump, didn't we, about the fact the tournament had been shifted from Bangladesh. We were worried about the crowd and the atmosphere, but for that one, well, the top tier of the Dubai International Stadium was opened up, and support for India was, as you would expect, vociferous, loud, noisy. And I read a stat, and Charu, you would probably know this, that 38% of the UAE's population is made up of Indian expats. So plenty of support there. But I have to say, through being here, even the event PA, the music, the sound of the event is sort of making up for the lack of crowds. It certainly doesn't feel like you're in an echoey stadium when you're there. And there is a good mix of people, like I said, a melting pot of nationalities who are coming to the grounds to support, even if it's not in the numbers we might have got in Bangladesh. Certainly for the Bangladeshi team. But pitches and outfields have been a bit slow here. Catching hasn't been great. A lot of straightforward ones have gone down. So the cricket hasn't been as free scoring as we would have hoped. But this could and should have been a very different tournament. As I said, originally scheduled to be hosted just over 3,500 kilometres west of where I am in Bangladesh. And the decision to move the tournament was taken back in August after the civil unrest in the country. So we wanted to ask this week, what has this meant for women's cricket in Bangladesh? And we can bring in Bangladesh cricket writer Tauhid Qureshi to have a chat about that. Tauhid, welcome to Stumped. You're following the World Cup, I know. You're also preparing to cover Bangladesh's men and their test series against South Africa coming up. Busy time for you. But just how big a disappointment was it for everyone involved in cricket in Bangladesh that this tournament couldn't have been staged there as planned?
From a personal and a professional point of view, hugely disappointed that the tournament did have to move. And I know that those sort of sentiments were definitely shared by the team themselves. So I was talking to Bangladesh captain Nigar Sultana Jyoti a few weeks before the tournament. She was sort of saying how disappointed she was from a personal point of view, but also disappointed on behalf of her family and friends and supporters who are all due to watch her. She actually said how she also has sort of family and friends around the world who were looking forward to travelling back to Bangladesh to watch her play. She said she has a friend in Australia who had already booked a flight apparently to Bangladesh before the news came through that the tournament was going to be shifted. So yeah, clearly disappointment on a number of levels.
Bangladesh did win their opening match, though, here against Scotland. How did you feel watching that? What was the reaction in Bangladesh? I mean, there was a lot of emotion, I felt, coming from the players and the captain in particular.
Definitely, yeah. I guess it was a bittersweet moment, just kind of watching the start of the game. As I was saying, the hope was that the tournament would be taking place in Bangladesh, but that obviously wasn't to be. But in terms of the victory itself, like you say, there was a real outpouring of emotion from the team. The captain herself, who really is the heartbeat of that team. She lives every ball from behind the stumps, batting at number 4 as well. And yeah, you could see what it meant to the players. I also felt that the emotion, the outpouring of emotion at the end of that game was also a bit of relief, a bit of release from the last kind of couple of months, because it's actually worth remembering that during the height of the unrest in July, the Bangladesh cricket team were actually taking part in the Asia Cup in Sri Lanka. And at that point, they were pretty much cut off from everyone in Bangladesh. There were telecommunications were down, there was an internet blackout, so they couldn't get in touch with their family and friends back in Bangladesh. And also there was a real prospect of them being stranded in Sri Lanka. So I felt that, the scenes that we saw at the end of that Scotland game was just a release from all of that, turbulence over the last kind of couple of months.
Tawheed, hi, Charu Sharma from Bangalore. Thanks for joining us. Apart from just the crowd, and you mentioned what it would have meant to Bangladesh in terms of the team as well, what about the next generation of players? Because seeing really is believing. To have a World Cup happen in your own territory, I can't even imagine what kind of a boost it would have given to the next generation, to the younger girls playing cricket. And will that be missed now because of having the cup moved?
Again, great question. And I think, yes, there will be a bit of a hit in terms of that exposure that a World Cup brings to the women's game in the host country. So as you were saying there, the women's game in general in Bangladesh is still evolving. It's still very much developing. It still needs more investment from the Bangladesh Cricket Board. And certainly, by hosting a World Cup, just the exposure that young girls, young players would have gained, really, it's difficult to quantify, but for sure there would have been a boost, I feel, to grassroots women's cricket in Bangladesh had the tournament been played there, and that's unfortunately now going to be missed.
Tawheed, how many women are contracted professionally in Bangladesh now? I remember 2021, I think the figure was 22 players, and it was a salary plus match fees then of $150 for a T20 international. That was a rise in match fees, I remember, that was announced back then.
Yeah, so it's interesting you quote that number. The latest information I've got from the Bangladesh Cricket Board is that there are 18 fully professional players out there at the moment, and obviously, most of those are in the national team. But there are moves afoot to add another 30 players to that list. So, and apparently that is happening imminently. So there should be 48 fully professional players very soon.
And a final thought, I know that the Bangladesh Cricket Board's always been very closely aligned to the government of the day, and Bangladesh's non-partisan interim government has proposed reforms to the BCB. What hopes do you have in terms of further positive change going forward? And clearly, more contracts for women comes in amongst that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, that the BCB is in flux at the moment, which in itself creates a really good opportunity to try to shape cricket administration in the country going forward. I guess the key thing is investment. So as we were sort of saying before, in terms of, that there has been a financial hit through not hosting the World Cup. However, it's always a bit of a grey area in terms of how much revenue generated by the women's game is actually cycled back into the women's game. So clearly, investment is absolutely key. And when we talk about investment, that means investment in infrastructure, in facilities, all of those things that create that ecosystem which really needs to exist for the women's game to thrive.
Tauhid, thank you very much for being with us on Stumped. Thanks for sharing your insights. Bangladesh cricket writer Tauhid Qureshi with us on Stumped. Next on Stumped, from women's cricket with the white ball to men's cricket with the red ball, because one of the finest batters in the Test game has become England's highest ever Test run scorer. Joe Root eclipsed Sir Alistair Cook's record of 12,472 runs in Test cricket when he hit an elegant straight drive, yes, lots of applause, elegant straight drive back past Amir Jamal to reach 71 not out against Pakistan on day 3 of the first Test in Multan. I'll tell you what, in the interview he gave at the close of play on that day, he was absolutely spent, drained, having passed 100 for the 35th time in his career, but suffering dehydration and exhaustion in the process. But then he picked it up to make it a daddy double the following morning and ended up with his highest ever Test score of 262. Root passed Cook's mark of career runs in 14 fewer matches than Cook. He now sits 5th on the all-time list of leading run scorers in men's Test cricket. You have to go all the way back to his debut in Nagpur against India in 2012 when he first started out. This is his 147th Test match. Charu, I mean, the pitch aside in Multan, and let's not talk about balance between bat and ball because it's non-existent, but taking a career view, I mean, what an achievement this is for Root. But, you know, he has done it at quite a pace as well.
Well, yeah, the old cricketing cliche of Joe Root possibly wanting to roll up the Multan pitch and take it home because it's
Please
produced a lot of runs.
But, don't want to see any more of it.
But yeah, you mentioned an important point, and I think if you go back the last 2 or 3 years of Joe Root's career, he has scored quicker, perhaps, than ever before. I'm not suggesting that he was scoring the snail's pace earlier, but he's really picked up that scoring tempo. And I think all of England has, well, the English, the men's team. So that is something now which everybody is aware of in terms of record breaking. He's scoring freely. He seems to be really happy with himself, having given up the captaincy, may have made a bit of an important change as well. And this is a big daddy 200, but the rate at which he's scoring, once he gets set, he gets 100 almost at will. So everything going perfectly for him. He's just behind Rahul Dravid, a little further behind the others. But now, let's not talk about Sachin Tendulkar right away.
Oh please, we'll come to that.
Is right on track, without doubt, and batting beautifully.
He really is. Jim, one thing which isn't on Joe Root's CV as yet, though, I know you've mentioned it before on Stumped, is that Test 100 in Australia. I mean, he will be desperate to fill in that gap, won't he?
I would have thought so, yes. I mean, the way he's going, it'll probably happen next year, but there's no doubt that historically he finds it a little more difficult against high-quality pace bowling on bouncier pitches, and he's not the only one who's struggled to get runs as consistently in this country as other places. But his record's phenomenal. He's a very cool, calm, complete batsman, and we saw plenty of evidence of that in the last Ashes series. So if he can sustain this form, if he's got the hunger, he's certainly got the ruthlessness to go on and surge past Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, if England keep playing a dozen tests a year, he's the third to do it by his 200th test match, I would have thought. So, yes, all these records, they get topped off at some stage. Although you wonder about some of the test records as we get a little bit older. They may not get the opportunity to play as much Test cricket with the surfeit, the preponderance of white ball cricket that we're getting now. But yes, he's a magnificent player, and I'm sure that's where he is heading.
Yeah, it does make you think, doesn't it, that the Test records that are in place now, how many of those will be broken in the future? Because almost sort of below the Joe Root generation now, is as much Test cricket going to be played? England do tend to play more than most other countries, but you mentioned Joe Root as captain. Well, when he gave up the captaincy 2.5 years ago, his Test average as captain was 46.44. Post-captaincy, his average has gone up to 61.11, and he's scored 10 centuries in 30 Test matches. So it really does, you know, it's taken the, if you like, the weight off his shoulders, freed him up under Stokes and McCullum to go ahead. But go on, let's talk about Sachin, because he's still more than 3,000 runs behind him. But like Jim said, you know, there's every possibility. And You know, at the age he's at, he's very fit. He's been lucky with injuries, hasn't really had any time out of the game. And if he carries on like that, well, yeah, he could well do it, couldn't he?
Well, yep, Jim mentioned the 200 test mark. So that's in terms of matches, but also in terms of years. Root has played half of what Sachin Tendulkar played. He's been playing for 12 years. Sachin played for 24. So, I mean, even if there aren't too many test matches that countries play, you mentioned England play more than perhaps most others, if he should display that level of longevity, then surely he's going to go well past every possible test batting record. That's for sure. I just don't know how much. Well, he seems very hungry right now. And unless there's some selection, googly that's thrown various ways, if he continues to represent England, and happily so, and he's happy with the game, we've heard of people getting tired of the game as well, why would he not why would he not cross every single batting record of Sachin Tendulkar in terms of runs and in terms of centuries as well?
Well, that's Joe Root, but what of his heir apparent, do we call him? Harry Brook, 25 years old. It looked at one point like he was going to break Brian Lara's record for 400 in this test match, out for 317, but I mean a triple 100. Jim, what can you say about him? Because, even with the conditions that we know about the pitch in Multan, it still just takes so much concentration to be out there for that long.
Well, it does, but I think, Len Hutton, if he's watching from upstairs, will be happy that his number still stands at 364. So it's going to be a Yorkshireman. It's going to be Brook. It's going to be Root. We're going to get past that number one day, I imagine. Playing on bland pitches like this, scoring at 5 or 6 runs and over, it's inevitable that someone's going to get 450, isn't it?
Charu, have you enjoyed this knock?
Alison, there's some sort of a parallel to Virendra Sehwag, who was the last that somebody could have expected, last Indian somebody could have expected to get a triple, because he used to score quickly and he liked the fact that he bashed the ball around. We thought Harry Brook was very much like Sehwag, hitting some quick runs in white ball cricket. But who could have imagined that he'd get to a 300 just like Virendra Sehwag first got to a 300 for India? And where did he do it? In Multan. So we have a new Sultan of Multan. It's Harry Brook.
I like it. And he's had a taste of captaincy, hasn't he, in the white ball game for England. So maybe he will follow in Joe Root's footsteps and we'll see him lead the test team at some point. But he's certainly laying down his own marker in terms of his run-scoring feats. As for Joe Root, well, we're watching greatness, aren't we? So I just think, lap it up while we can. Well, that was all we've got time for on this week's Stunt. So I'll say thanks to Jim Maxwell, to Charu Sharma, and to all of you for listening. And we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.